All right, Geometry Advanced, I had a couple questions about the homework, so I'm going to talk through a couple of those. I only got requests for 11 and 12, so let's start with 11. All right, so we are told that this is a rhombus, which you should know that a rhombus is a type of parallelogram, which means all those properties still apply. So things like opposite angles are congruent is a property of a parallelogram that would apply here. So we've got this angle 120 degrees. Opposite that, we have angle 1. So those angles have to be congruent. Therefore, the measure of angle 1 is 120 degrees. All right. Now, for just a moment, imagine that that diagonal is not drawn in. So we're just going to kind of erase the diagonal temporarily. Act like it's not there in those corners. If we do that, then we should know that consecutive angles in a parallelogram are congruent, which means that this angle up here, the whole angle, if I take out the diagonal, that whole angle is supplementary to this angle down here. Okay, consecutive angles are supplementary. So what that means is that this whole angle, I'll call it A, angle A would have to equal 60 degrees. Okay, so these are supplementary if they're consecutive inside any parallelogram. All right, so then let's act like the diagonal is there. Let's bring it back. Because this is a rhombus, the diagonals bisect pairs of opposite angles. So if this whole angle at A is 60 degrees and the diagonal bisects it, that means that angle 2 has to measure 30 degrees. And hopefully you can see that we would end up with the same situation down here. If I were to call this, we'll call it angle C. Okay, angle A and C are opposite angles, so the measure of angle C is also 60 degrees. And again, we have a diagonal that bisects that angle, so the measure of angle 3 is also 30 degrees. Okay, so hopefully that clears up any questions you had about number 11. Let's scroll on down to number 12. All right, number 12 is a similar situation. We have a rhombus that has one diagonal drawn in. So if we go back to the idea that the diagonal would bisect the angle in the corner, then you should know the measure of angle 1 is 41 degrees. Okay? So if this whole angle up here, again, I'll label this angle A, this one angle C. These angles, A and C, are congruent because they're opposite angles in a parallelogram. So that means when we have that diagonal drawn in to bisect them, the bisected angles are also going to be congruent. So the measure of angle 2 is also 41 degrees. Okay, if that doesn't make sense, you could think about the fact that the measure of angle A is going to be 41 plus 41, which of course is 82 degrees. And then angle C would also equal 82 degrees. And then we would just have to take that divided by 2 to get the measure of angle 1. So the measure of angle 1 is that 82 degrees split in half, still 41 degrees. All right, that just leaves us angle 3 that we need to find. So again, if we act like the diagonal isn't there, the measure of angle A or C, whichever one, is 82 degrees. because a rhombus is a parallelogram, consecutive angles are supplementary. So that means that the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle 3 must equal 180 degrees. Okay, so to find the measure of angle 3, we just have to take 180 minus 82 for that whole angle. So 180 minus 82 should leave us with 98 degrees. And that would be the measure of angle 3. Okay, if you still have questions about these, please let me know, and I can try to find another way to talk through it. Let's see if there are any others. I think if you understand 1213 shouldn't be too bad. Again, these angles should be congruent, so the measure of angle 1 is 24 degrees. You could add that up to find that whole angle. It would be supplementary to this whole angle, and you would just have to divide it by 2 to find angle 3. The measure of angle 2 is touching on another property of rhombuses that we didn't talk about yet in this video. That's that the diagonals are perpendicular to each other. So that means angle 2 would have to measure 90 degrees. Okay. Let's see, 14, 15 shouldn't be too bad. I think 16 was one that might have been a little bit tricky, only because you have to watch what information they give you. So they tell you that xv is 2x plus 4. So that's just this little piece here, just from here to here. And that wy, which is that whole diagonal, switch colors, wy from here all the way up to here is 7x minus 1. So in a rectangle, the diagonals are congruent. And because a rectangle is a parallelogram, the diagonals bisect each other. So one way of doing this would be to take 2 times xv and set it equal to wy. Xv is only half of the diagonal, so we would have to multiply it by 2 for it to equal the whole other diagonal. And if we plug in the expressions they give us, that makes it pretty easy. 2 times 2x plus 4 equals 7x minus 1. Distribute that 2. 4x plus 8 equals 7x minus 1. Let's see, I would probably add the 1 to both sides, subtract the 4x, and then divide. We should get that x, sorry, I'll write that where you can see it, x equals 3. Okay, and once you know x, then you should be able to find the other items that they would ask for. All right, let's keep scrolling. Uh, 17 shouldn't be so bad. In a rhombus, all the sides are congruent. So you could take the sides that involve the x and set them equal to each other. You could take 8y and set it equal to 24. In a rectangle, opposite sides are congruent, so I would recommend starting to find y first. Once you know y, you could plug it in and then find the x. Squares, again, all sides are congruent, so that one shouldn't be too bad. You would need to start with x on this one and then plug x in so you could find y. All right, if you still have other questions, let me know and I will try to address them for you.